Okay. No one wants to take a shot. It's fine. Essentially,
Uh,
oh yeah.
okay. So, can you move the smallest ring to C
Mm-hmm.
and the medium ring to B
Yep.
and the smallest ring to B?
Mm-hmm.
Move the largest ring to C.
Mm-hmm.
Move the smallest ring to A
Yep.
and move the ring from B to C and A to C.
Yep. That's perfect. In fact, that's actually the least number of moves we can do to do this. Yeah. So that's actually a perfect, perfect solution. Yeah. So let's actually record exactly how many moves it took for these three rings to go from A to C. And good job. It's like actually it's pretty quick. Um, so I'll just record it on here. Let's turn on annotate. And for three rings, we have seven moves. So R and we'll put M here. Okay. It's a kind of ugly diagram, but it should work fine enough. All right. So when we have three rings, we have seven moves. So what about if we try to increase the number of rings? So let's say we try four rings. Um, I can actually send you guys this. I can actually send you guys this website. Let me actually do that real quick. Uh, Send you guys this website so you guys can try it yourself if you want. And yeah, so I think you should try it with four rings, but if you want to try it like on here, you can also do remote control. So just press remote control on the Zoom feature, or you can request and I can give it to you. So you can try it yourself. But for four rings, it's sort of a similar idea, right? You can still move them around here. It's still the same rules. But if anyone wants to give it a shot just right here, you can also just try right now. And you don't have to be 100% sure about the solution. That's kind of the point. It's a bit of a trial and error kind of game. Okay, so does anyone want to give it a shot, or do you think we should just try it or I can just try it. All right, so the way we do this is, way I like to do this is obviously you want to start off with the purple one on top, right? You want to just move that off because that's the only thing you can really do. So I'll just move it to C, and then I'll move this to B, like this, and then hopefully I can move this everything to C. So now I'll just see if I can move this off. Boom, 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 then B, and then this big one on B. But here I have a problem actually. So when we do it like this, because the game requires you, actually let me see if it does require you. Um, uh, the game does require you to put it on to C rather than simply on B. So what that means is we actually have to start from the beginning and try to make sure that we build our tower on C instead of building it on B. What that means is that on the beginning, instead of putting this straight on C, we should put it on B actually. So that later on, as we slowly move it, you can see that it kind of lines up, right? It kind of lines up straight onto C so that we can put the biggest one on C without anything in the way. And well, if we want to move it off, then we just need to do this and then put the blue one on here and then the purple one on top. So now we've moved it to C. And well, as previously, we can record the number of moves that it took. So the number of moves here is going to be 15 for 4 rings. Okay, so has anyone tried it out like on their own? Do you like sort of have a feeling for how it works? Or a strategy for how to solve this game quickly? Yeah. Um, well, for me personally, what I kind of noticed that, for example, in this one, what we did was actually we had to first move the yellow one, like the bottom one, bottommost one, from A to C before we could actually start building the top ones. In order to do that, notice how we actually had to build a little tower in the middle on B so we could move this big one from A to C. So we had to build a little smaller tower here. And And since we had to build a smaller tower, we just build the smaller tower. We have to move this smaller tower, the smaller 3 um, ring tower again from B to C. So it's kind of like we're doing the previous 3 ring Towers of Hanoi twice because we're moving it first from A to B and then we're moving it from B to C. And in between we're moving this ring from here to here. So keep that in mind as a sort of an idea of how we want to do this problem. But anyone, but for now we can move on to 5 rings actually. And if anyone wants to give it a shot, you can. It's actually quite nice. For 5 rings, it's kind of an adventure. You sort of take a look, you go around, you do a lot of different things. And if you want to try this on your own, take your time as well. Yeah. Okay, so for this 5 rings version of the Towers of Hanoi, well, all we need to do is sort of like last time, right? You build a mini tower on B, and then you move the bottommost one, the bottom orange one, to C, and then you build a mini tower again on top of the orange big one. So I guess in order to do that, we need to make sure that our tower, our mini tower, is going to end up on B. So our 4 ring tower is going to end up on B. But in order to build the 4 ring tower that ends up on B, we have to build a 3 ring tower that ends up on C. So I guess we can just do the same procedure as we did before for C first, and then we build the mini tower here. And now we move it from C to B. like this. So we built this sort of four ring tower in the middle, B, a four ring tower of Hanoi, I guess. And then finally, we can move this orange one from A to C, like that. And what that means is that after we build this middle tower, we just need to move this from B to C again. So it's sort of like doing the Tower of Hanoi, the four-ring Tower of Hanoi twice again in order to do C. So the moves are actually going to increase a lot with each additional ring added, since you have to do it multiple times. But that's kind of the strategy here, because you have to first build a middle tower in order for you to move the bottommost one from A to C. Because otherwise, if say you had another thing here, another thing here, then you can't move that bottom one. And the bottom one is the one that you need to put down on C first. So what we'll do is we now move this one here. And then in order to move it from B to C, well, what do we have to do? We kind of do a similar idea, right? We have to just build it over there. So we use a similar strategy. In order to move the yellow one from B to C, we have to first build a 3 tower on A. In order to do that, we just do it like this. And now the yellow one is free. And now we can put this yellow one onto C. And now similarly, we have a 3 tower here, and then we just have to move this from A to C. So like that. And thus we have 31 moves for 5 rings. Does this make sense to everyone? Is it like kind of confusing? Do you have any questions? Do you any thoughts you want to try? Any ideas you want to try here? Okay, so we have a couple numbers here so far. But one thing I kind of want to take a look at is what happens if we have, say, 2 rings. Well, let's take a look at like what happens here. If we want to move it from A to C, it's obviously quite simple, right? You just move this one here, move this one here, and then move that one there. This is pretty obvious. But if we have 2 rings, then that means that we have 3 moves. We can kind of take a look at a pattern here, since as it increases, we go from 3 to 7 to 15 to 31. Does anyone actually notice a pattern with these increases in moves?
Times 2 plus 1.
Yeah, times 2 plus 1. It's exactly right. Because 3 times 2 equals 6, 6 plus 1 equals 7, 7 times 2 equals 14, 14 plus 1 equals 15, 15 times 2 equals 30, and then 30 plus 1 equals 31. So essentially, you can see that it's 2n plus 1. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's usually people don't see that quickly, but yeah, it's excellent. You can see that here every time it's 2n plus 1. So if n is the previous number, then then we have 2n plus 1. So that means that it is a recursive function. So let's call this r, right? So if r is you know what, let's just do it like this. So the moves of the number of rings equals the moves of the number of rings minus 1, 2 times that plus 1. Okay, that's kind of terrible. Okay, +1. Oh my god, this handwriting is terrible. Yeah, so if the moves of the number of rings that we have now is 2 times the previous number of rings, like 1 less, +1. And we can see that here, right? Does anyone have any sort of ideas as to why it's like that? Why we have this sort of pattern? I mean, I kind of hinted at it with the sort of the strategy that we have for solving these. Mhm. Oh, yeah, that's perfectly fine. I mean, it's a pretty sort of conceptual, abstract idea right here. What we have is, as previously mentioned, let's start with a number of rings as 3. Um, like sort of like what we said before, in order to move all of these 3 rings from A to C, we have to what we have to do is we have to first build a tower, a 2 tower, like or a smaller tower on B, right, in order to move it from A to C. So like this. And notice how this takes exactly the same number of moves as moving 2 rings from A to C, right? I mean, it makes sense, right? Because you're just moving it from A to B and A to C. It's the same, should take the same number of moves to move 2 rings from A to B as 2 rings from A to C. So that's sort of the idea. You first have to build a smaller tower in the middle, and then you have to move this top one. And moving this big one here accounts for the +1 at the end, because we first move this right here. So we can say that moving it from here adds 1n. Like, say that moving it from here to here is just 1n. And then here to here, moving the bottom one is a +1. And where does the other, like, why is it 2? Well, because we have to do the same procedure again by moving this middle stack from B to C, like this. And thus we have a 2n plus 1 recursion function. And recursion just means it recurs to previous numbers based on the next result is based on what the result was previously. That's what a recursive function is. So to recap, it's just like this. We first build a mini tower in the center that is 1 less higher than the number of rings we have. Then we move the bottom ring to C, which accounts for that +1. And then we have to move it again. So we have to move the top 2 rings from A to B and then from B to C. So it's essentially doing the same procedure as this twice. That twice. But we also have to add this bottom ring right here. So does this make sense to everybody? It's a little bit complicated, but yeah, so does this make sense to everybody? Do you have any questions? Do you have anything you want to try with Towers of Hanoi? You know, maybe more pegs, maybe different variations.
Yeah, I don't have questions. Yeah, no.
Okay. So I guess it does make sense, right? Um, Another thing I kind of wanted to talk about here was what the starting move should be. Because notice how for 3, we have to start, when we have 3 rings, we have to start by moving the purple to C first. Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? So that's going to work. But if we move it to B first, Then notice that we have a problem, right? We have a problem because we built the mini tower on C rather than B, which means that we can't actually move this big ring to C. Now, this is pretty obvious when there's only a couple rings, right? When there's only 3 rings. But let's say we have like 8 rings. Well, how do we know whether or not we need to move this purple ring to B or C from the beginning? Because whether or not we do that, which one we choose is gonna affect whether or not this giant bottom ring is gonna be able to go from A to C or A to B. So if it goes to A to B, we have a big problem because that means that we can't actually build the tower again, build up the tower again on C. So does anyone know exactly? Does anyone have any ideas on which one we should move from A to C? Sorry, which peg we should do for the purple one from the beginning. So how do we do it how do we make sure that we moved it to the right one? Okay, so let's start with something like 4 rings. How do we know that we need to move it to B or whether we need to move it to C first to start off the game? Does anyone have any ideas or should we just sort of try it? We can literally try it, and then like we did before, we can sort of find a pattern, and then we can take a look at why that pattern might be. Okay. So, well, for this one, let's just try it. Let's say we would just want to try B, right? So if it, let's erase this actually first, just to make some space. So let's do number of rings again, and we'll just call this X, I guess. Doesn't really matter. Which one we should move. So when there's uh, when there's 4 rings, let's see which one works. Reset. Let's just try B first. And we'll see what happens when we do B. Oh yeah, it seems to work. We were able to yellow ring, the yellow bottom ring to C, which sort of shows that for 4 rings, we want to start off with B. Now what about 5 rings? Well, for 5 rings, let's try B as well. And if we try B, what's going to happen is we can start off like this, and then like that. Um, yeah, this. And then we can move this all the way here. Afterwards, we build the tower. Like this. Okay, yeah. So it's like this. But we have a problem. So what that means is that we can see how the orange one here wasn't actually able to go from A to C. It's only able to go from A to B. And remember that in this puzzle, we have to move the entire stack from A to C. We can't just move it from A to B. If we move from A to B, it's not going to let us win. So that adds an additional layer of strategy to this game because we need to know which one to start off in the beginning. And it seems like for 5 rings, B does not work. So if we just try C real quick, and just do that. This, and then, no, that's not right. This, that. We can see that C does in fact work, since we were able to move the big orange one all the way to C if we start off by moving the purple one to C. So for 5, it is in fact C. Now, I think we could go up further with the number of rings all the way up to 6, 7, 8, but it's going to take a while. So I think a better course of action is to start by going down. And if you remember for this one, we just move, for 3 rings, we just move it from A to C, like this. Oops. So we actually do start, for 3, we do start on C. You know what, let me fix this up real quick. 3, C, 4, B, 5, C. And if we continue going down, if we, let's say, 2 rings, well, 2 rings, we obviously start off with B, right? And then we do this. This is pretty self-explanatory. For 2 rings, it's B, and then if we go all the way down to 1 ring, well, the move is pretty obvious, right? We just go straight, purple just goes straight to C. So 1 ring will be C. So does anyone notice a pattern here on which peg we want to move our purple smallest ring to first as our opening move? Because remember, we have here, the only 2 moves we can possibly do is move this to B or move this to C. So anyone notice a little pattern here in this graph? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the rings. For as it increases, it goes C, B, C, B, C. Okay. Well, it's pretty simple. It's just that, well, C, B, C, B, C, well, it's alternates, right? You know, you have C, and then you have B, and then you have C, and then you have B, and then you have C, and then you have B, right? So it's just C, B, C, B, C, B, C, B, C, B, C, B, C, B forever. And I know for a fact that's actually going forever because of the way that we solve the Towers of Hanoi, of the optimal way to solve it. Well, because every time, let's go down here, for 2, every time we want to build we start with 1, we just build a tower on C, right? But when we build 2, we build a tower of 1 on B. So you want to start off on B, right? But later on, as we move on to 3, when we build our first tower on B, notice how when we build our tower of 2 on B, like this, notice how we first must move our smallest piece from A to C first. So we have to move it from here to here in order to make space for this one to go here. So it is, again, like a recursive sort of idea that we want to first do what we did previously with less tiles, with less rings, first building it onto B. So what that means is that we have to put our topmost piece as the opposite of the previous one, of the Towers of Hanoi, where there's one less ring, where there's one less ring. So to recap, what this is, well, in order to do this, in order to do 3 rings, we must first build a 2-ring tower on B. In order to build the 2-ring tower on B, that means that we must start by putting this purple one on C. And because we're building it on B instead of C, it has to be the opposite of the previous. We have to start out on the opposite of the previous number of rings. If we move it up to 4, well, we also have to build a tower that is 3 rings high on B first before we can move the bottom one to C. And what that means is that we have to first build a tower of 2 on C in order to build that onto B. And to build the tower of 2 on C, we have to first we have to move the purple one to B first. Okay, so this is a lot of B, C, B, C, B, C, move, 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 purple, purple, purple. But what it is essentially boils down to is the idea of a procedure that contains the previous procedures, if you know what I mean. This procedure contains a bunch of the previous ones, of the one with the one less ring. So rather than simply thinking about this as, oh, we're moving all 4 of these rings to C as smaller chunks, and think about those smaller chunks as even smaller chunks, as even smaller procedures. And as we think of them as smaller and smaller procedures, we can glean this information about these properties, these deeply held properties of the Towers of Hanoi, such as the fact that when we start, we want to move it to C for 1, B for 2, C for 3, B for 4, C for 5. And, well, another way to think about it is that if you have an odd number of rings, well, then you have to move it to C. Because if it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, blah, 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 odd numbers, move it to C. But if it's an even number, you start off by moving your purple smallest ring to B. So here's some, I'll put some key takeaways here. Each move, for every increased ring, for every 1 extra ring, the minimum number of moves is 2n plus 1 if n is the minimum number of moves for 1 less ring, for the current number of rings. Okay. And then another takeaway is that the starting move of the smallest ring is C for odd numbers, and B for even ones. Okay, so these are some key takeaways that we have from here, and this is sort of what we can see from experimenting with this idea. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, comments about this, about these, about the rings, the Towers of Hanoi, these concepts? Because we're going to move on to some slightly more complicated variations that I think are pretty interesting. Yeah. And it's harder to find it's harder to find an easy solution for those like this. But these are important concepts. Okay. So now we're going to take a look at some different variations, because we have basic Hanoi, which is what we have here. But yeah, does anyone want to try one of these? We have more pegs, which is like this. Additional pegs. You have another one, so it makes it a lot more interesting. You have colored pegs, which I'm sure what this actually is. We have multi-ring, so it means that we have multiple rings like this. And then we have two color, which I'm not sure what this is. Um, which means that we have to build two towers of Hanoi here. So that's actually really interesting because we have to build a yellow tower of Hanoi on A and a blue tower of Hanoi on B. So does anyone want to choose which one you want to try? Like a variation to try. Okay. Well, that's okay. I'll just take a look at I don't know. Let's go with more pegs, I guess. It's kind of goofy. But for more pegs, I assume we're moving from A to D this time. And and I guess with this, it's actually a bit easier because you only need 5 moves to move 3 because you don't need to build a tower of 2 anymore. You could just have them sloppily laying around like that. Um, but when it gets to bigger numbers of rings, let's say 6, then it's kind of complicated, right? You don't really know what's going on.
Dog lay down next to him. The man's soul stands in front of him. Is the soul. A mysterious place. Mysterious man.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So when it's like this, well, there's a bunch of different things you can try. But does anyone want to give it a try? Just I don't really know how this works either. I don't really know how you can do this well, but does anyone want to give it a try? You can also just try to take remote control of my computer, I guess. So to try this out. Okay. Um, well, I guess I'll just give it a shot. So I guess A to B like this. It seems like you need to just move these around like that. It seems like you just need to try to build 2 towers first, like this. Oh, that's not that. I guess you first need to build 2 towers and then move this bottom one there. Then build up this tower here, and then like that. And this seems about right. But there's a bit of math involved for this actually. If you wanna find the optimal way to do 4 pegs, you need to figure out which for the middle ones, for the middle two where you're setting up your all of these 5 in the beginning, which one is what combination of sort of sizes of towers of Hanoi should you use? Should it be like a 3-1 and then a 2, or a 2-1 and a 3, or 4 and a 1? Not really sure, but you can probably calculate that. I think no one wants to try. I think we can take a look at um the multi-ring version. So for multi-ring, does anyone want to give this one a shot? Should be relatively simple compared to the many pegs ones, because the many pegs one is kind of complicated, but this one seems pretty relatively simple.
Move both the purple pigs to the C.
Mm-hmm.
Then move both the blue rings to B.
Oh my gosh, sorry, it's kind of hard to move these. Okay, there you go.
Then the purple pigs to B.
Yeah,
Then the green pigs to A.
wait, they're already at A.
Oh, C.
Yeah, makes sense.
Then the purple ones to A.
Mm-hmm.
Then the blue ones to C. Then the
Yeah,
purple ones to C.
yeah, like that. Makes a lot of sense, right? And you can kind of notice that it's 18 moves actually. So I don't how much was the 13 moves before? Was the 3 one before? 3 one before was 7. So it's kind of like doubling. It's kind of like doubling and then plus 3, plus 4 actually. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So the number of moves it takes is actually kind of a bit more. But yeah, there's a 4 rings, 5 rings. Does anyone want to give it a shot for 4 rings as well? Bella, do you want to try? Jasper?
The purple rings to B.
Mm-hmm.
Blue rings to C.
Mm,
Purple rings to C.
yeah.
Green rings to B.
Mm-hmm.
Purple rings to A. Blue rings to B.
Mm-hmm.
Purple rings to B.
What's
Yellow rings to A.
uh?
Wait, no. C.
Mm-hmm.
Purple rings to A.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, it's okay. If you want to undo, I mean, you can undo as well, but it's okay.
oh wait. Purple rings to C.
Mm-hmm. I think we could just undo that and then go to directly to C. Right? That would
Blue
move
rings
like
to
2
A.
minutes. Blue rings or purple rings?
Blue rings.
Mm-hmm.
Purple rings to A.
Nice.
Green rings to C.
Mm-hmm.
Purple rings to B. Blue rings to C. Then purple rings to C.
Yep. very nice. This is yeah, this is really good. It's like it's pretty efficient, right? Like you can get it pretty quickly now. I mean, 30 moves is still a lot, but it's pretty quick. Like you can do it in not too many moves. Um, yeah, there's 5 rings. I don't know. It seems a bit repetitive, but do you guys want to try? You guys want to try this one and try 5 rings, or do you want to try else here? One of these other things, colored pegs. I don't really know what that is, or two color. Someone want to try any of these? Think any of these are interesting? Or you can also just take a shot on your own. You know, I sent the link in the chat. It's a pretty cool website as well. There's a bunch of other puzzles. Okay. It's not. You can take a look at, I don't know, two color, I guess. So does anyone want to try this two color one? Let me just make sure that how this works. So it should be like this. Right? Do something like this. There you go. Yeah, so it's something like this, where you want to build 2 towers with these 2 rings, but you want to build a tower that's only, you want to build a blue tower using the blue rings only on B. You want to build a gold tower using the gold rings only on A. This one's pretty hard, I'm not gonna lie. But anyone wants to give it a shot, like you don't need to. It sounds really hard. I don't really know how to approach this, but it's a pretty crazy question. Yeah, it's a pretty cool one. If anyone wants to give it a shot, it's kind of a challenge, but wants to take a look at it. You guys think about it for a moment. You want to send a sort of a recommendation in the chat, that also works. But if not, we can just take a look to see how many moves it takes, I guess. Yeah. But I think the main way we start this is that we want to move the blue one to B or the gold one to A first, right? So I'll just go with moving the blue one to B first, the blue big one. And I think the way we do that is we want to first get these all off, right? We want to first clear out B. We want to first move this blue to C while also clearing out B so that we can put it on. I think the way we do that is that we first want to move it to C. And if we put this here and put this on top, we can move this guy to C. Then we want to clear out B. So basically move this entire little structure thing all the way to A. And I think we just do that like this. And so we build another little structure right here, that to move this to A. And in a way, we also move this bottom one to A so that we've sort of killed 2 birds with 1 stone here. We've moved this guy to A while also clearing out B for this big guy over here to come. And in order to clear out A again, we just have to do this here. And it's sort of like doing the double ring kind of system, the 2-ring pair system. But we move it around like this. This one is a super complicated recursion, but it's a pretty fun way to do this, do Towers of Hanoi. This one here, this one here, and there we go. So it took 36 moves. I'm not sure if that's the fastest, but that's my best. If you guys want to try this, out on your own, I sent it in the chat, and I'll also send it again in the WeChat group and the Discord server for you guys. So yeah, it's a cool thing. It's a thing that a lot of people play in real life as well, the Towers of Hanoi. And it's definitely a great example of recursion or math in these kinds of games. All these kinds of games that we play in Math Circle are like this, and yeah. So it's actually one of the first things that we did for Math Circle a year or so ago. So yeah, I want to approach this again with some more math involved in it. So yeah. All right. But aside from that, unless anyone wants to try something, should be it for today. Thank you guys for coming. Yeah, so that's it. All right. Okay, so bye guys. Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you later.
See ya.